Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I'm one of your hosts, Petter, and with me I got my co-host, James.
Yeah, hello.
And today we're talking about Volume 6 of To Your Eternity. We are now halfway through the books that I've read so far, so that feels good.
A landmark.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also a landmark. I feel like this book in itself is a landmark in a way because it kind of closes, in a way, the first major arc of the story, I guess you could say, sort of.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I guess you could say. I mean, I guess you could also say there's been 3 arcs, like the March arc, the Gugo arc, and the Tonari arc. But I would also kind of say you could also combine those into one larger arc, where you have this, because this book marked the end of Pioran, and it also kind of, with this book and the previous one, it also kind of tied the Hayase story thing together that started in the beginning of it.
That's true.
So I guess in a sense you could view these first 6 as kind of the beginning, in a sense.
So does Oima ever clarify her story arcs at all? I know sometimes publishers and authors will say, okay, we're entering a new arc, or we've just finished an arc. Has she said one way or the other?
The only time I've ever, at least through the books, because I will say I'm not very invested in the fandom, like the community, like in this series. I'm very much a loner kind of in that. Well, now I guess we're a duo now because we got each other for this. But like before we started reading this together, like through the podcast, I was very much like I didn't really talk to anyone about it. However, there is, at least through the books, and this isn't a spoiler I guess to say, but there is in one of the future books that we haven't gotten to yet in the podcast, there is a sort of a arc shift announcement in the actual book.
Interesting.
And that's the only time that I can at least recall that in a book. But we haven't actually seen that yet. But I still can personally at least consider this kind of the end of an arc, but also divided into 3 parts. There, 3 smaller arcs.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I guess we get into the characters as usual. So starting with Fushi, for the first time we actually got to see him create an empty husk of one of the human forms that he has acquired. It's something he himself kind of speculated on in a previous volume, but in this one we actually saw he created like just a limp body of the boy to fool Hayase.
Yeah, it shows how smarter he's become in that sense. In using his powers, he's kind of experimenting in that way with what he can do. And it was really neat to see. It was also really neat to see after he had used that once, and then with the hole in the ground, he did it again, and he's kind of cocky when he was talking to Tonari after that.
Yeah, he was.
Cocky is one way, but I think he was also like fed up when he got out. Is, if you're gonna trap me, do it better. Like, of course I could get out of that. It was really funny. It was kind of a new shade to his personality that we really hadn't seen before. Kind of sassy in a way.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, don't underestimate my powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because before that, he had given himself up willingly to Hayase because he felt confident in his ability to escape by himself.
Yeah.
And he did that in order to free the others, which was really nice. And I mean, I don't know if this side of him is potentially a little too cocky, because I mean, we don't know for sure, or I guess he couldn't have known for sure if he would have been able to escape by himself.
Yeah. Right.
Ultimately, he did, but what if Hayase would have locked him into like a metal cage or something that he wouldn't be able to get out of, or I don't know, but it worked out. But I'm just thinking that this new sassy, cocky side of him, which it doesn't take over. I'm not
maybe overconfident in that sense.
Right.
Although I will say there were moments when maybe it was more self-doubt than anything, but he kind of there was still hesitation within him, so he's not completely overly confident in his abilities to save the day or save everybody.
Absolutely.
So I guess it could be more that with himself, he feels he's able to take care of it, like he can take care of himself. But when it comes to others around him, that's where he feels insignificant or uh, unable to do that.
I think that makes sense. And building from the previous volume where we talked about how Fushi kind of his arc throughout the previous volume was very much about not wanting to kill humans regardless kind of their sins. But when he faced Hayase, he wanted to kill her in the previous volume.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, in this book, he actually ends up not killing her in the end. You know, when they're on the boat on their way away from the island, and she kind of begged him to kill her, which I I want to say that he has gone through this arc kind of where he is able to not forgive, but he's able to not feel like he has to kill even her, even though she killed two of the most important people to him. He is now able to kind of control himself enough so that he doesn't want to kill her necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So while I think that's a part of it, I think another part of it was, which was kind of touched on in that conversation by them, is that if he does kill her, I think he's afraid of the possibility of him turning into her, and that's not something he wants to do. I mean, he wouldn't want to take her shape.
No,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I when you said turning into her, my first thought was, oh, like, the master has replaced, or the pupil has replaced the master kind of stuff. As the first thought that came to me, and then I was like, oh wait, Fushi can transform into people.
He sure can.
So yeah, but I think it's true that last chapter, or man, I keep saying chapter, last volume, he was caught up in the moment. Hayase really egged him on, and obviously she did some terribly evil stuff, or just unforgivable things in this volume as well. But it was just in the heat of the moment. I think that urge to kill her, one was new, but it was just so strong that I don't really blame him for having those feelings.
Right. No, of course.
And I think it makes sense for him to not do it, considering how much he values life at this point. So kudos to him to kind of control that side of himself as well, and stick to what he, I guess, believes in. But yeah, it's interesting what would have happened if he had killed her.
Yeah. I look forward to talking about her specifically later on, but
right.
Yeah.
Although I wonder what, I guess, with Fushi's powers, it doesn't really matter if he kills them. I mean, of course it doesn't matter if he kills them, right? Like, they just have to die, and if he has strong memories of them or something, he can transform into them.
Supposedly.
Actually, I have a theory on that when we talk about the Beholder.
All right. Interesting.
So let's I guess put that down for now.
Gotcha. Right. I didn't actually take too much notes for Fushi from the time on the island. I think the rest of the stuff I have is from after he got off the island. So if you have anything from kind of before the island related to him, or like while on the island related to him, then
yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, going back to his hesitation to kill people, but or things that look like people.
Yeah, right.
Or once people.
True.
But also his doubt that he can actually protect anybody.
Yeah.
That I think was kind of reinforced a bit in these last few chapters, or while on the island. But I think him saving Tonari and I can't remember the boy's name.
Sandal,
yeah. I think that kind of gave him a little more confidence in that. But at the end of the day, I think that is still a struggle he kind of is dealing with, that he can't save anybody. Maybe something that he struggles to accept. Maybe Pioran's death helped him a little bit, but I'm not quite sure.
Mm.
And then just again, like I was saying, his hesitation to kill the Nokkers that took on the forms of Upa and Mia and all of them. You know, it was a sad moment, but it needed to be done, and it's a shame that he couldn't have put Upa to rest at that moment.
Yeah.
With Perona, probably would have saved a lot of trouble potentially. But
Right. Yeah, it is a shame, but you know we can't blame him. Like being in that situation must be incredibly stressful and draining and just awful in so many ways.
mm-hmm.
But it is still a big shame. But so is a lot of things in this story.
Right, yeah, that's kind of the tone of the story, I guess.
Yeah.
It's also really sad when he says he couldn't save them, and he's in Gugu's body or he's in Gugu's form.
Mm.
It's just kind of a parallel to, you know, the person so important to him, like Gugu, and he couldn't save them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was a sad parallel.
Absolutely. Yeah. He struggled with leaving Pioran after he got off, and he he went back and forth like, oh, I gotta write her a letter, oh, I gotta give her a coat,
right.
Oh, I gotta get her some food. Like, it was kind of cute to see him that way, but
mm-hmm.
it was also kind of hard to like follow along with that struggle of his, because he loves her, she's family to him. Still, he felt like he had to distance himself from her because of how things are with the Nokkers.
Right.
So it was really sad to see, but it made sense. And I thought this is a little bit of a funny thing, but like when he was watching her and she was being sort of abducted by this man who like wanted to bring her back to the island, and she bonked him on the head and like she was fine.
Right.
Fushi was looking at that like in hiding in his wolf form, and just like his reaction to that, like you can see like his face expression was like kind of derpy and surprised and like, what? Like she did that?
It's like the surprised Pikachu movie, but in wolf form.
Yeah. I just thought that face was so funny. Hey, that's another thing we should make into an emoji on the Discord server.
Hey, I like it. I'd eat that.
Mm-hmm.
He wonders if he'll be able to feel satisfaction in life like Pioran.
Mm.
That's very deep for him. I guess a little step back. The beholder says that he has kind of the mindset of a 14-year-old. Like that's how much mental growth he's had.
Right.
And I think for a 14-year-old, I think that makes sense to start thinking about that kind of thing. Will I have, when I grow older, will I have happiness in life? Will I have the things sufficient for comfort and things like that? Will I find satisfaction?
Right.
So I think that gives his journey, his personal journey at this point, a little more meaning.
Mm.
Although I think the way this volume ends off, I don't know how well he's doing mentally, to be honest.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see in the next book. Yeah, because I think that's a really good question that's difficult to answer right now.
Right.
But yeah, it will be fun to follow up on that later. He learns that all humans eventually die from old age. He learns that in this book, which feels like a little late to learn. I feel like considering he lived for 4 years, he lived like in a family with people.
Yeah.
2 of which were very old. But I guess they just never talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Pioran was pushing 90 apparently, so maybe she didn't want to bring up death and everything,
Fair. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I guess, yeah, that's an interesting thing that he wouldn't have, or why wouldn't he have picked up on that before? Maybe just a concept that he just wasn't able to wrap his mind around.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, he hasn't necessarily noticed people getting, like, weaker through age, necessarily.
That's true.
Because both Boosman and Pioran were already very old when he got to know them the first time. So over the 4 years he knew them, or 4 to 5 years, it wouldn't have changed very much, you know.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Gugu definitely grew over the time he
Right.
knew him, but in not in any negative way. So I guess he never
Yeah.
really thought about that, I guess.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, we talked earlier about how he feels guilt for like everybody's deaths and stuff like that, and he also admits to feeling lonely when he talks to the beholder,
Mm.
which is also really sad. And it I really started feeling that last or in volume 4 when he felt like he had to leave the tower, or his family after Gugu had died,
Mm-hmm.
because that was when he, I think, for the first time really came to the realization that I can't be around people that I care about, because if I am, the Nokkers will come and there's a high risk of them dying. So I think ever since then he's kind of had this struggle, and he has been feeling lonely because of it. But at least it was nice to see him give Pioran his time, kind of,
Right.
for the last however long that was that they spent together before she died. Maybe a few weeks. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unclear how long it ended up being, but
Hmm.
I do agree that it's sad that he feels lonely, and I think because he'd had the companionship of so many other people before, to suddenly have that go away, or at least be back to a point where he'd be all alone again. I think that wasn't obviously something he wanted. So I
Yeah.
think it was nice for him to at least spend as however long Bjorn had,
Mm.
spend that time with her.
Yeah, and I think he will be really happy, or he is really happy, I'm sure, that he did that. That after all of the going back and forth of like trying to abandon her versus wanting deep down to be with her, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
he's very happy that he did stick around with her and spend all that time with her in the end
Agreed.
before she passed.
Mm-hmm. Although I do think that it was good for him to experience that and everything,
Mm.
but I wonder if her death and then his subsequent isolation, or him being by himself supposedly,
Right.
kind of messed with his head, or put him in a bad spot, like almost as if he's reverted back to the boy's attitude way back in chapter 1, where he
Mm.
was all smiley and almost stupidly positive about situations.
Right.
And while we said that was very at least I remember me personally saying like, wow, I really appreciate his positive attitude.
Yeah.
I think you brought up the fact that while it is true that he's positive, it's still, I think I don't know if it really comes from a healthy place. Or you're mentioning like he's still positive, but obviously he's struggling with what's going on.
Right.
And I think this could be something similar where he's just laughing things off as if it's
Mm.
not that big of a deal, or I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into this. Maybe he's just become this lackadaisical kind of guy who laid back and just say, "Hey man, life's life, like knockers knock you back down, like you just get back up, like it's totally good."
Yeah.
And maybe the island or the coast life has gotten to him. I don't know. For me, to see him kind of struggle with Pioran's death and then just kind of laugh it off.
Mm.
I don't know. It just seems a little off. But maybe I am reading it wrong, and if I see it animated, I'll get a better picture of it. Because again, I do think Pioran left him with a good message. Doing what you want and
Mm. Live free.
finding satisfaction in life, live free.
Mm.
So I think that was a great message for her to leave. But part of me just still wonders if there's some kind of depression or kind of sadness in Fushi right now
Mm.
to deal with loneliness or separation
Right.
anxiety.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Like not only Gugu, but also Purina, who was with him for longer than anyone ever was.
Yeah.
And experiencing the death of a mentor
Mm-hmm.
like her, who also was very much family, like that is really rough. But I thought it was really nice to see that he, while he was spending his days with her at the end there,
Mm-hmm.
he started to also like take notes of important things so that he wouldn't forget them.
Mm.
Just like we know that, back in volume like 3, I think, it was implied that she also did that.
That's
So
true.
that's something pretty cool that he picked up from her. But he had his own cool little twist on it, that he just burnt the papers afterward because he would be able to recreate them later anyway. So that's pretty smart. Uh, but
Yeah, that is pretty neat.
yeah, yeah, and then and like at the end, there, as we have talked a little bit about, he's just kind of chilling and killing knockers by the coast, and the beholder says it's a few years later, but it looks like it's more than a few.
Yeah, I'm thinking like 10 years maybe,
At least,
at
yeah.
least. Like
Yeah.
honestly, when I first saw the guy, I was like, "Who's this? Who is this man?"
Yeah.
I, is, I had to like go back and forth between like the last page where you see a close up of Fushi's face and just like go back and forth. Is this the same man? I don't. It is him, right?
It is him.
Okay. That man. Wow, what a time skip.
Yeah.
And he hasn't changed in what we presume at least to be 10 years.
Mm.
Wow. Like,
Yeah.
hasn't transformed at all.
Right, supposedly. Then anything more on Fushi?
I don't think I have anything else.
All right, then let's talk about Tonari.
Okay.
So she woke up from the Western Morning Glory after just a couple of minutes on the boat.
Yeah, what the heck?
We talked about this last time, about how she woke up sooner than the others, but although it wasn't ever really like made into a thing in the first book or in the previous book. But here it's explicitly explained, and like they make a point out of it. She woke up 5 minutes before the others, and or no, she woke up after 5 minutes while the others were still probably would be sleeping for 2 hours, and also she woke up while Hayase was holding her over the edge, which worked to their advantage, because Hayase wasn't expecting that, obviously. So yeah, that's interesting. Like how come?
Yeah.
How come that's a thing?
I mean, what did she eat Western Morning Glory as a kid and just is immune to the long-term effects of it? Like I really don't know. Like what? How would one be able to just wake up from that? I don't know.
It's very interesting. Maybe we'll find out at some point.
Well,
Hopefully.
I mean, here's the thing: Tonari's not dead yet.
Exactly.
And so she's. I think she's got to come back to the story, but we'll get back. We'll get to that towards the end of her discussion, I think. But that's definitely a plot point that I think needs to be touched on again.
Absolutely.
Just, why was that a thing?
Definitely, yeah. Especially since it was hinted at in Volume 5, and it was brought up more into the spotlight in this one, but we still don't have an explanation. I'm also definitely expecting an explanation to it.
Cool.
So yeah, and she went back to save Fushi, and everyone on the boat, from the boat, and everyone there was like really helpful, helping her escape back to the island. That was so awesome to see. And her friends also made it back to the island a little later to help her out. So that was awesome. I mean, it didn't end up awesome, but hey, whatever.
They made the choice. They, as
yes,
I think the Beholder has said before.
Yeah.
In a way, humans choose when they die.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of a broad look on it, and doesn't really get into the specifics of things. I don't think people choose when to have cancer or not.
Well, I think when he talks about that, it's always in those specific situations when a person puts themselves in a dangerous situation where there's a chance of them dying.
Exactly. So, these Tonari and her friends knew that death could have been possible probably, but they wanted to be there for each other. So
yeah, right.
I really like that.
It's so nice.
And so actually talking about Tonari, first off, I it's nice that she's able to relate more with Fushi after seeing his anger towards Hayase,
Yeah.
and she kind of feels a connection in that way. If he could feel that, then maybe he's more human than I thought, and maybe I'm more human than I thought. Because I think that she struggled with her own thoughts, how she views the people on the island as basically just trash.
Yeah.
And to an extent, I totally understand where she's coming from. You know, some of these people are just murderous psychopaths.
Mm.
But I think also she felt disgusted that she wanted them all to just die, and so maybe she was looking for sympathy or an ally in some cases. That even, especially in someone like Fushi, who was so pro life and reaching his hand out to prisoners and stuff like that, to see him have that desire to kill someone, I guess was maybe even comforting for her at first.
Mm.
But eventually, I think she does learn that maybe that mindset is not correct, may not be the right word, but applicable to each situation.
Right.
And I think she does grow in watching Fushi's example.
Absolutely. She used this coping mechanism where she, in her head, she essentially kills the people that she doesn't like, or the people that
Right.
she deems are, well, bad people, supposedly. And I understand that. Having spent half of her life, I think it is technically on that island, and that's like from 7 to 14. That is like pretty much all your life, because
Yeah.
you aren't a lot before you're 7. But so having had the life that she's had, I feel like she could have turned out way worse.
True.
As a
Yeah. I
person.
mean, right? She could have been a murderer herself.
Exactly. So for this to be who she is and how she is, she's a wonderful character, and she shouldn't feel bad about having those thoughts.
Yeah.
Especially since really the people that she thinks so badly about are people who have committed bad sins. But she does also have that very nice character growth, as you said, and as you like, she learns from Fushi, no doubt. Because when she and Sandal decides to stay behind on the island afterwards, she wants to make it a place where criminals can become better people, essentially.
Right.
So she doesn't really wish for them to die because of their sins anymore, but she wants to help them and to make them into good people as far as that goes, I suppose. So I think that's a really beautiful change of heart.
I think so, and it kind of, well, it kind of aligns with my own philosophy in life, is that everybody can change. I think change is very much a part of human life. While some change may be more difficult than others, it is possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes can be for good, for until the person dies, they just are a different person. I fully believe that is possible. Anybody who says that they can't change is either not trying hard enough or they don't want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I think here we see Tonari kind of realize that she can be the one. Well, she changes herself, but also she can be the hand that helps other people realize that they can change.
For sure. And I think this is something that Yoshitoki Oima herself believes in very strongly as well, not only because of how she depicts it in this story, but also, if we take a look at the manga she wrote before this, A Silent Voice,
True.
That's also largely about how people can better themselves and redeem themselves and become better people.
I should really read that. Oh, are we gonna? Oh yeah, never mind. Sorry.
We might.
We talked about we might. I don't remember.
we have touched on it off recording a little bit, and I guess we can talk about it slightly here. Yes, we have talked about maybe covering that manga on Umami Manga eventually.
I mean, we could take it out. Well,
No,
you're the one who's.
I mean,
this,
I don't mind. Yeah, I'm the one saying this, and I still feel like at least I would personally do that because that's a manga that I would be happy to talk about. But anyway,
Sorry.
As I was saying, yeah, like it's something that I think, yeah, the author, the mangaka here, I think she strongly believes in that as well, based on the fact that it's prominent in both of her bigger manga series.
Indeed. So something else that I took from Tonari this volume is the line. Well, let me say two things. One,
Hmm?
it's her dream changes. So before, her dream was for her dad to read her masterpiece. Well, not just her dad, I think her parents, to read her masterpiece, right?
Yeah.
That was her dream.
Hmm.
Well, she actually literally dreams about it, and then she decides then and there to move on, I think. To move on from her parents that, you know, they're both dead at this point, and to keep holding on to that dream, I guess, in her mind was folly.
Mm.
Um, so she decided to make a new dream and I guess write about it.
Yeah.
And that was just spending time with her new family on on an island somewhere, just the people that are close to her. So
Hmm.
that was nice for her to have a new dream. And unfortunately, you make a new dream, or you have a dream in this manga, and um, it doesn't really come true, or it comes true in certain ways, I guess. Um,
Right. But it was really nice to see that new dream of hers just kind of
yeah,
free from all of the cruelty and hostility that's been
right.
that she's been raised with. Was really nice to see that little glimpse.
It really was, and I hope she's able to maybe even create a situation like that on the island. Although that's
Yeah.
probably a lot harder said than done.
Oh yeah, true.
Consider, considering you get all sorts of criminals coming to the island.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I took away from this is a little more
Mm.
speculative and theorizing. So bear with me.
Yes, yes.
It's when she says, "I want him to be in my future."
Oh yeah.
So when I read that, I was like, "Whoa, was that a hint of romance? What?" I said, "Okay,
Uh-huh.
maybe I'm overthinking this. Maybe I'm overthinking this." And then she started like blushing at what Fushi was saying.
Mm-hmm.
When on top of the above the hole that Fushi was in, and Fushi finds her.
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh wait, what is going on? Really?" And could there actually be feelings there? However, it could just be Tonari was just embarrassed by what Fushi was saying at the moment. You know,
Mm.
like, "Oh, you came to protect me, the immortal being? Like, are you crazy?" And maybe she was embarrassed by that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like something it also ties into the very end of like Tonari's story there, where she sends the owl towards him. She she basically does it not only to watch over Fushi, but to be a beacon for her to eventually find him. At
Right.
least that's what she says.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, they could just be like the greatest of friends, and that's totally fine. But it also seems very romantic. Well,
Yeah.
very is the wrong word. Slightly romantic.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
like there could be that sort of undertone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would lie if if I said I didn't see this too. Uh,
Okay.
like I definitely think there's like yeah these small little hints, and I also get the feeling that well Tonari at least gives me a little bit of a tsundere vibes in some instances. At least
Yeah.
at least if we
Mm,
go under the assumption that the blushing is because of romantic affection, but
mm-hmm.
there's no words kind of about it. That's like one little thing, I guess, that
Mm.
points toward that. But also her very last words that are directly to him when she shouts out, like as he's rowing out with a boat, and she shouts out, "Fushi, I think I might come see you sometime. Maybe."
Sound like I want to, Baka.
Exactly. That's the vibe I got from that.
Well, I'm really glad I'm not the only one in this potential delusion. But I don't know, like and honestly I wouldn't mind it. I do want I would want to see more of interaction between them
Hmm.
um before I could like completely ship it in a way.
Right, for sure.
If ever, like I for some reason part of me kind of struggles with shipping Fushi with anybody at this point.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird, right? Because he is technically still lending somebody's body. So it's like
Yeah.
it makes things maybe a bit complicated when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
But hey, they are at least Fushi is considered a 14-year-old according to
Right.
the beholder, and Tonari is also 14. And hey, the boy's body might also be about 14.
That's yeah. Mm-hmm.
At least
Although
around.
not anymore.
Well, oh yeah, no, right, true.
Not anymore. But neither is Tonari. I mean, if it's in at least 20 or not 20, 10 years at least,
for sure.
then she's obviously grown up too. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. It could be an interesting plot point in the future, or she can just pull a Perota and just kill her off screen.
You never know.
And I will be really mad at Oima.
Mm-hmm.
I will be Oima. You can't do that 2 times. That baseball is 3 times you're out. Here it's 2 times. It's 2 times. If you do this again, there will be anger.
Yeah, you can't get attached to anyone in this series. That's
But that's my problem. Is if it's a good story, I get attached to people.
I know, me too, and that's the thing. She's a fantastic storyteller.
Yeah.
But still, she does this to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cruel. I love it though.
No, yeah, it's good.
I love the way it hurts. Well, so back into Tonari a bit. I thought it was really nice to see, or to kind of follow along with her narration throughout the volume a bit. The first time that we got that here, I at first I thought it was the narrator or the beholder, but the boxes, the text boxes were a bit different. Like they looked more like paper, so I understood soon enough that it was like from her journal.
So, which part is this? Sorry.
I think the first time was when she was leaving the boat.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it happens one or two times later as well. But it's
right.
I think once you've understood that it's her, you can notice that easier the later times as well.
Totally.
But I thought that was a nice change of pace to get her point of view on that.
I really want to know what. I mean, it seems like she's writing a journal, but is she also writing a novel at the same time?
Yeah, like an autobiography, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, like essentially a diary, I think. Near the end, she was prepared to give her life to kill Hayase. And kind of sacrifice herself doing that, which I thought was a really powerful moment. Like the first time I read this book, I definitely thought that she and Hayase were both going to die there.
Really?
Well, just based on the fact that every second book, like in book 2 and 4, we had major characters that we loved die, and following that pattern, book 6 would be the next one. So with that in mind, I was convinced that she would die there and probably kill Hayase with her.
Okay.
The first time I read this.
Right. I don't, and I that makes sense. I don't blame you. For some reason, I think it was because I was in denial. Because I didn't want Tonari to leave.
Yeah.
Kind of like how she went away from the story anyway, but I still wanted more of Tonari. And so when that was happening and she was having this long monologue, I was reminded of when Gugu kind of had that long monologue when he was with Fushi in his tent. You remember that?
Right.
It was kind of a fake out death there.
Yeah.
And so that I was thinking just at that moment, is this another one? This has got to be one of those moments, right? And I guess it ended up being like that. But it would have been an interesting, or it would have been a noble sacrifice. But I still think you can't quickly kill off characters like that. Every time and have a successful story. It would just get too repetitive, I think, right?
I absolutely, I definitely agree. So I was really happy that she didn't go that route. With this
for
one.
Sure.
Like I have a lot of respect for that choice, and I'm just happy to see Tonari alive at the end of this book.
I mean, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So and. I guess, actually, now I'd like to touch a little bit on her friends, because I feel like we can talk about them in Tonari's section.
Sure.
They faced some very tragic ends.
Indeed.
As we mentioned Upa earlier, she was turned into a Nokker zombie, and she stabbed Mia in the gut, which would eventually lead to her death. And poor Uroi ended up cutting his arm off because it was like infested with a Nokker, and like it was really really sad to see. I sort of wish we would have like maybe could have had a little more time maybe to get to know these.
Yeah.
Although I thought it was based on how little we did know them, I thought it was still pretty impactful, I thought.
Yeah. True. I think they had noble deaths. I think they had enough in the story for us to care about them dying.
Yeah.
I wasn't devastated that they died. They will be missed.
Oh yes.
But I liked their characters, and it was sad to see them go, especially from the viewpoint of Tonari and how important they were to her, and to Fushi to an extent.
Right. Yeah, like I was a little bit surprised by myself because I did end up tearing up a little bit.
Oh, really?
At their like, I think it was especially like after the fact, like after the kind of the climax when their dead bodies were just laying on the ground and Tonari was like explaining why they were so important to her.
Yeah.
That I thought that was really powerful.
That was pretty powerful. You know, I think I actually said in the previous volume that these guys would die.
You may have.
I think I did. I can't remember for sure though. I'll have to go back and listen. But anyway, but like you said, you know, death and losing beloved ones is just so common in this series. It seems like that.
Yeah.
You can guess anybody's death and
True.
and be right almost 50% of the time.
Yeah, legit. Tonari and Sandal survived this book though, so that was
okay.
That was nice.
So it is nice, but Sandal surviving, that's a surprising one. If anybody were to survive, I would think it'd be like Upa or some, or it felt like Sandals was not very prominent even in the previous volume. In this volume, once he kind of was with Tonari, he obviously had more of a role. But it felt like it was the other guys who were that had more lines, had more conversations.
Yeah.
So it's just like, wait, where have you been this whole time?
I agree. He's definitely the one that sticks out the least, I think, in that whole group.
Yeah, he really does.
But he's sweet, I guess, from what we've seen. So
yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting. He's not super memorable.
It's true.
Do you have anything more on Tonari? I have one final thing that I figured I would end this with, but if you have anything more, please go ahead with that.
Yeah. It was smart of her to bring up that corpse attract evil things and kind of get that mindset into people that if you keep killing, we're going to get these monsters coming back, so let's not kill anybody. Whether or not that's true, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think that's
right.
what she was implying, or like why she said that, and hopefully that kind of mentality will stick with the people of the island.
Yeah,
they'll be less willing to murder.
For sure. Yeah, actually, for some reason I didn't put together that when she, like that she meant it literally, but I think even though she might not. Like, she probably doesn't believe that that's the case, but still to use that as, I guess, propaganda in a sense. Yeah. Although this is good propaganda, it's really smart, and I think it's very possible that she actually did that. I just didn't personally think of it that way when she said that, because I guess the way I interpreted that was more like, just in a figurative sense, how doing bad things will, like kind of a karma thing, like doing bad things will get you in bad situations. In some sense, but I definitely like this interpretation as well. I think it makes a lot of sense, given the situation.
I mean, I could be wrong. I may have read it wrong, but at the very least, I think that she wants to try to help change the people's mindset, as she was saying. So I understand why she wants to stay. But she also said she wanted Fushi to be in her future. So it's like, it seems like that's contradictory. But I am glad that she decided to stay. It would have been great. I think it would have been good for Fushi to have her around, just maybe to help with loneliness. Um, but at the same time, I think it was important for her character and for the island people to have her there and kind of be, in a way, a helper, an instructor on getting the island back on track or in a better place.
She was named island leader by Hayase. After
True.
Hayase won the tournament, she made her the leader. So technically, she is the leader, at least by the time Fushi leaves the island.
Good point.
Uh, yeah. Anything more?
That's it.
Gotcha. Then I have one final thing, which was probably just in the physical book, I assume, because it was like a between chapters thing.
Okay.
There was, well, it was actually like on two sides of the same paper between the chapters. Like on the first side, there was a very short little letter from Nand to Tonari. Nand is the guy that Fushi fought in the tournament who had a younger brother. That guy sent Tonari a letter, a very brief one, just kind of asking like how are things going on the island, basically.
Huh.
And then on the other side of that page is Tonari's response to Nand, where she explains that the island has become much friendlier since the Nokker attacked, and so things are looking up generally.
That's good.
And actually addressing what you said earlier about how it's a little bit contradictory of her to stay behind on the island while still wanting Fushi in her future, she said something like, I think I'll stick around on the island for maybe at least another 15 years.
Whoa.
I think she said something like that
Okay.
in this letter.
Hmm.
And what I thought was the most interesting thing was kind of what she mentioned close to the end of this letter, where she said that a new religion of sorts has started forming on the island called immortalism,
Oh my.
where they're more or less kind of praising Fushi.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, and Hayase's guardians that are still on the island are kind of fanning those flames, especially, it seems.
Hmm.
And also, they seem to want Tonari's diary. They want to get their hands on that and use it.
Gosh.
I'm assuming they want to use it as like a holy text of sorts.
Wow, this letter is very juicy.
Very, yeah, but these were I would say the crucial parts of it. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Hmm. Interesting indeed. I wonder if just me speculating now, and obviously you don't have to confirm.
Uh-huh.
It makes sense to me if eventually in the story you get some sort of religious group that kind of worships Fushi's immortality.
Yeah.
In some aspect. I mean, it would make sense if it came from that island, or if it came from the Yanome themselves. I'm not sure.
Right, exactly. It's not really specified in the letter exactly how it arose on the island. If it was the anime guards who brought it there, or if it arose originally from there, we don't really know.
Like, is that something you just bring up in a a page, an extra page in a volume?
Yeah,
And
it's
then
interesting.
then never bring it up again, or is it a hint at something? I wonder. Like, I personally think it's got to be a hint, or at some sort of like story thing.
Yeah, because it seems very much like world building. Like it's going to affect the story potentially at some point, like moving forward. And I think that would be really interesting because yeah, as you said, like it makes a lot of sense. If an individual like Fushi exists in a world, then yeah, I it's not a stretch to think that people will start worshiping this person in a religious manner.
Absolutely.
So yeah, very interesting. Any other thoughts on Tonari or on this?
15 years.
Oh yeah,
That's very specific.
yeah. Let me just double check that real quick.
Should be like 29, or maybe, well, depending on when the letter is written, maybe even 30.
Exactly. It's not implied exactly when the letter is written, but it's implied at least that she's still a child because she refers to the adults as the adults,
Okay.
implying that she's not one of them yet. That's all I know as far as like when the letter was written.
Interesting.
but yes, she does say, I think I'll be here for 15 more years or so.
I hope nothing happens in those 15 years. And, well, I mean,
Mm,
nothing meaning, she doesn't die in those 15 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
And supposedly she is keeping in touch with Nand somewhat frequently because she ends her letter by saying, "If you stop receiving letters from me, just assume they killed me." And I think
Oh
by
boy.
they here she refers to the Hayase guardians, the Yanome people, because she mentioned them the last thing in the paragraph before that.
Yeah.
So
Well, that doesn't give me much happiness. Okay.
so I'm excited to see what comes of this.
Indeed.
So moving on to, man, we've only talked about two people so far.
Oh crap.
Moving on to the next one, Pioran. So
Okay.
while Fushi was trying to distance himself from her, after they got off the island, he took note of like that she hadn't smiled at all during the time that the two of them had been apart. But the moment that she found him again, like that smile on her face was, I thought it was really touching to me, just seeing how happy she was to see Fushi again, and also the fact that she actually recognized him despite his disguise in that moment
That's true.
was really cool.
I think it's who else would be out here in the forest,
Yeah, true. But she's such a wise old woman. Like I love like she's like one of my favorite mentor, like wise old person character in any story. Like definitely up there, like one of my favorites.
Yeah, she's a good character. It's too bad. I guess she was getting Alzheimer's as they were going
Yeah,
on,
something like that at least. Yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was hard to see, but I guess Fushi again, like we were saying, Fushi's experiencing a a person who is dying, who is leading up to their deathbed,
Mm.
and I think that was important for him to experience.
True. True. But yeah, yeah. Like I agree. It was really sad to kind of see her losing herself gradually like that. Um,
Hmm.
but like right, kind of before her death, her mind cleared up for a moment. That allowed her to make that deal with the beholder.
Yeah, that whole scene.
Mm.
What?
Really interesting stuff. Uh, I think first of all, I think I can't like give you a source or anything like that, so don't quote me on this. But I do
Hmm.
think it does occur uh, that like it's not unheard of for people with dementia or Alzheimer's or like things like that to sort of clear up in their heads moments before their death. Like I think I've heard of that happening, like IRL. So I thought that was a nice little detail in this story here. But also, yeah, like that whole interaction between her and the beholder was really fascinating because we've never seen anything like that before, obviously in the story,
Right.
and how she was able to get her wish granted by him to be reborn as something that would be useful to Fushi in the future. Really interesting.
Yeah, she got a couple wishes because she asked, or Fushi asked her, "What what do you want, or what's your wish, or something like that, or your
Hmm.
dream?" And she said to be young again.
Yeah.
Um, and so she did get that in a sense, just like March and Gugu and all them
Mm.
got little visions of their dreams before they were accepted into Fushi. And that's where my theory comes in because she asked to be useful to Fushi, and obviously the man in black eventually, or the beholder eventually complies.
Mm.
But what is that? Like, what did she become? And I think potentially she became one with Fushi, and that's how it will be useful to him, and he just doesn't. Either he doesn't realize that,
Huh.
or he just doesn't acknowledge that fact that he can turn into Pioran. And this goes into my theory about the beholder in that what if with each of these deaths or each of these forms that Fushi can take, there is a moment where the beholder is literally adding them into Fushi in some manner. And
Interesting.
for the first time, we see the beholder adding something to Fushi.
Ah, I see what you mean. That's a really interesting theory. I wonder
But
though.
please clarify, like, because I have no idea what is happening here.
Right? No, of course, of course. And I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to say too
Spoil
much. Like
things.
I want to keep
Okay.
it. I mean, I guess at the level that I think I was at when I read this the first time. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, I wonder if your speculation is right here, then that would basically mean that this is the same thing that everyone that he has gained the form of before, like it's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I
Yeah.
understood, if I understood you right,
Yeah.
which would
That's what I'm thinking.
mean right, which would mean that Gugu would gain Pioran's old woman form,
Huh.
right? If he would gain her form, then he would gain her old woman form.
Oh. Fushi. You mean Fushi would gain
Oh, did I say
his?
Gugu?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so
I'm so.
confused.
I kind of rewinded my mind there, and like, oh my god, did I say Gugu? Okay, yeah, sorry. Fushi, of course.
Yeah. I think it's got to be the old wound form because that's the form we see kind of morphing. It would be interesting
Yeah,
if Fushi got younger Pioran, but one, he has never seen younger Pioran,
yeah,
and that seemed to be more like a dream, just like adult March.
for sure, for sure.
So it would have to be older Pioran.
Right, which I think also makes sense if that's the case. But I was wondering, like, how would that be of use to
Hmm.
Fushi? Because Pioran was very specific about wanting to be useful to him, and
True.
how much use would she be if she would give him that form? That form can't
Mm-hmm.
do very much. It's like a 90-year-old old woman who is basically senile.
Mm-hmm.
I
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's an interesting thought though, and I mean maybe there's more to it than we are able to talk about right now.
Hmm.
Like maybe you are onto something, but I think based on the interaction between Bjorn and the Beholder, I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
something different. I feel like it's something that's not the same as everybody else's passing away.
Gotcha. So it's unique.
Somehow,
Okay.
I
Okay.
think. I think.
I will say that another thought I did have was more of I guess something that's even harder to accept.
Mm.
Like if she became the same material as Fushi itself, but not part of Fushi, but then how would that be useful? Like when would that become part?
Huh.
I don't know. That one's a little weird. Like I don't know why she. It was just strange seeing the ball, and then her kind of dissolving or morphing in the way that she did,
Yeah.
and not seeing her in any new light or any new form other than I guess young Pioran. So is it, where's the usefulness? Where is the new tool for Fushi, if anything?
Right. Yeah, it's like I guess the way I see that right now at least is that her being young in that moment, first of all, it was really nice to see what she looked like when she was young. But I think it was as you said, like similar to the other characters that died. It's kind of like well,
Right.
their dream in a sense.
Yeah.
And then when the beholder took her, kind of, and she became who she was when she died, and she essentially was taken in by him in a way. I think I view that as well as him taking her and to maybe then place her soul elsewhere. Basically, just
Okay.
taking her away from that dream, and then he's gonna go somewhere and place her soul somewhere where he thinks it will be useful to Fushi, I suppose.
That's actually not a bad thought. I mean, again, I don't know all of Beholder's powers, but if he's able to capture a soul,
Hmm.
then he's probably able to put it somewhere else potentially.
Right,
So maybe Bjorn will be reincarnated as another person or even
right.
an animal. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know how any of us will be able to be like, oh hey, look, that's Bjorn,
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
unless the beholder is all like, oh hey, by the way, Fushi. You see that? Does it look familiar? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that is potentially eventually followed up on.
Yeah.
So, anything more on Pioran?
No.
Then let's talk about Hayase. She is indeed in love with Fushi, as we
Be gone,
talked
thought!
about. I know you were hesitant to admit that or to kind of suggest that last time, the fact
Yeah.
that she might have been in love with him, but turns out that she is.
She was
It's
very much.
really interesting.
I mean, it was love at first sight. Like, holy crap.
Supposedly, yeah. And I think based on also like going along with the idea that she's in love with him, based on the cover of Volume 5, which we talked about last time, and also based on her attempts in the previous book and in this one.
Attempted rape?
Yeah. Yeah. Based on all of that, I think it's also kind of safe to assume that she wanted Fushi to impregnate her.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
And yeah, right. In addition to being in love with him, she wanted his child.
So no, she keeps using the term love, and it's like, oh, you don't know love. I'll tell you. I'll teach you.
Yeah.
As she says on the boat.
Right.
You know, she was still going for it. Even it's like, I don't care where. It doesn't matter as long as we get it. You know, So to me, it's like, this isn't love. This is just lust at this point.
Mm.
And there's a difference. But then again, she did. But then she brought up the fact that she had loved him ever since that moment, and one of the reasons she claims that March and Perona died was because that they were in the way, or that they of their love. I guess it seems like she was implying.
Uh-huh.
To me, it didn't feel like that in the first 2 volumes. It felt more like, obviously she wanted Fushi for various means, and maybe there was a love there or some sort of lust, but it just seemed like they were just deaths that happened because they were in the way, like they were in the way of some sort of objective, not love rivals or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe there was a screw loose when the bear attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just kind of went nuts. But again, I think I know what you're gonna say. It's hard to say if anything changed, or if this is how she was the whole time.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah,
I guess I'll just end speculation there.
Right. No, but it's interesting because I mean I agree with all of what you said there, and I think it's very possible that maybe it was the interaction or the action she got when Fushi became the bear and attacked her, that maybe that kind of gave her a new view of him, potentially. Or it's something that's arisen after the fact, like after Volume 2, something that's happened over the years while they've been apart, that like kind of her fantasies of him have become something that she's fallen in love with, possibly. Who knows? Who knows?
Separation makes the heart grows longer, or grows fonder, or whatever the term is.
Yeah, right? Maybe something like that.
I still don't understand why she fell in love, or even if the theory that we have is true, that she wanted a child, like Fushi's child. Why? Was there a hidden meaning behind that? Did she want a part of Fushi's immortality? I don't know. Like, it seems to me there, it wasn't completely clear.
No.
On her objectives. Not that it needed to be. I'm pretty satisfied with her story right now.
Right. I think, yes, with a character as warped as she is, it is hard to really see kind of how she feels, like, for real.
Right.
But I think I am going to choose to think, at least right now, that her love for Fushi maybe actually is real.
Okay.
Even though she is such a twisted person, I think it's still, it's still possible for her to love and to feel true love. And I think, well, the fact that
True love.
yeah, this is a little inside.
True love.
Anyone who has been listening to our Kaguya-sama discussions,
It's real. It's real, folks.
the word has become a meme at this point for us. But so yeah, I do think I do think that's a very good possibility, because I think she's not a she's not dumb.
No.
And I think she's smart enough to understand that just because she would have a child with him, that wouldn't give her immortality. I don't think that's something that she would assume.
I agree with that, but also that's not exactly what I was implying. I was implying that her child would have potentially have immortality. I mean,
Right,
we don't know unless it happens.
Yeah,
but I think just thinking of potential, uses that could have if you say I'm the wife of an immortal being and my child is our offspring, so worship him.
Fair.
That could be pretty beneficial in a twisted world.
For sure.
However, I am agreeing with you that I do think these feelings, however warped, are genuine.
Yes.
I guess there's two pronunciations on that. And I think that we see that when, she believes solely that she's being kind to him, and that Fushi needs me, and I'm offering these amazing things for him, and so he has to love me, or something along those lines. It seems very well worded, but also like she's trying to come from a good place. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, totally. Because especially since last volume, we even talked about how in her speech to all the people in the arena after she beat Fushi, like, there were some kind of good things in what she said.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't purely like evil. She's so evil. It wasn't purely like that.
Right.
She made some good points, and while I think we can both agree that she is a bad person overall, but yeah, like, based on the fact that I don't know, based on all of the things that we have seen of her since she returned in the previous volume, I do think there is good reason to assume her love for Fushi is real. So
yeah,
it's interesting. But another thing I thought was really interesting with her this volume was her very fascinating interaction of sorts that she had with the Nokker that was trying to enter her arm.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
The Nokker was like half inside of her at that point, and she was talking to it and like kind of feeling like, yeah, we have somewhat of a common goal, but you guys are going about it like really bad. You should do it more like I'm doing it, and like it kind of had
you must be kind like me.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Lol.
Oh, that was good.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, good one, Hayase. But that scene felt to me a bit like two villains in a story that are kind of coming together, kind of uniting against the hero.
Yeah.
And it was disturbing too, seeing her arm that with like that whole like big like
bulge.
Yeah, it was disturbing imagery, and also somewhat disturbing monologue or dialogue. Well, it was a monologue because she wasn't getting any responses, but yeah, but like what she was saying to that Nokker. Ultimately, she ripped it out, but a stray Nokker appeared on her boat after Fushi left her.
Yeah.
And supposedly attacked her somehow. And then there was a page later on where we saw that she had been able to get to land. We just saw her arm, like some guy on the beach had taken her in. And like, what's up with that?
I have theories. I have thoughts.
Yes, I'm very interested in these.
About that whole things.
Yes.
But I wonder if I should save that for the Nokker section, or do you want me to just go ahead and...
Oh, I mean, if it's related to Hayase, I feel like you can mention it here.
Okay. So in that scene where she says, "You must be kind like me," there's a brief moment where the Nokker kind of pauses. It's almost as if it understood what she said, or it was like contemplating what she just said.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, is this thing cognitive? Can it understand human speech? Is something controlling it? But anyway, at that moment, Hayase pulls it out, and then they go their separate ways. But on the boat, when it comes after her, I wonder if it took what Hayase said to heart and realizes that instead of going about this whole, you know, destroy Fushi with overwhelming power, maybe it's gonna use Hayase to be stronger, but also like smarter,
Mm.
and use its I almost said woman. I mean, yes, woman appeal, but also the human appeal.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the human appeal instead, a more humane one instead of a just go and destroy everything all the time. I don't know.
Hmm.
It was just kind of my thought. But I don't think Hayase's dead. Obviously, I think that arm at the end is clear of that. But I'm not sure if Hayase is exactly in control.
Hmm.
It's hard to say
Yeah.
because whenever a Nokker controls a body, a human body, at least from what we've seen, the person dies.
Yes.
Now it could be that a Nokker consciously kills the person, that takes control of their brain or whatever. But instead of doing that, for Hayase, it just kind of teams up with it. I don't know why or exactly how that works,
Hmm.
but maybe that maybe it was able to somehow or Hayase was able to somehow strike a deal with it, and now she could be even more of a threat. I'm not sure. That's just
Yeah.
my thoughts going on.
Yeah. No, I thought that was really interesting to listen to. Obviously, I won't comment on them, but definitely interesting speculation.
One other thing I want to bring up is I did kind of feel bad for her at the end
Yeah.
because she expresses how much she loves him, and obviously it's toxic, unhealthy, and mentally unstable. But she brings up reasons why she could be so useful to him, and she gets really desperate. Don't leave me. You need me. And then Fushi, who has never expressed his hatred towards anybody
Mm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
except her, says, "I hate you,
Yeah.
and I won't even remember you," or something like that.
And she replies, "I know," which
Yeah,
is also really tragic,
that
honestly.
exactly. Instead of her kind of going, becoming like really upset or cackling or keep going on and on about how much she loves him, she just says, "I know."
Mm.
Like, one, that's a really smart decision on Oima's part because I think it's impactful in a way.
Yeah, it is.
But I think it shows that she knew what all she did was wrong, but to her that was the only way she could show her love,
Maybe. Mm.
or how she felt she needed to. It's very interesting, and I guess maybe this could be imply that sometimes the chase after immortality and the supernatural and maybe godlike can drive people insane.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's it it, it left a profound impact on me when I read it, and I was like, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think I would feel so sorry for her at the end there.
Yeah, yeah, it's really well done. I agree. Yeah, she is. While I hate her as a person, I love her as a character.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Just stop licking people, please.
Yeah, yeah, poor Fushi. So, is that all for her?
Yeah.
Then let's talk about the Beholder for a bit. Fushi doesn't seem to like the Beholder very much at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to Tonari sort of about their parents, and he says that he doesn't want to think of the Beholder as a parent to him, even though he did create him. So
Yeah.
I guess if you view it that way, he is technically Fushi's parent,
Mm-hmm.
but Fushi doesn't want to view him that way because he doesn't like him. And I think Tonari ponders in some very interesting ways in that scene. She says that, well, because before that she kind of likens a god to a parent, and
Mm-hmm.
when Fushi says that the beholder is not his parent, then Tonari says that, well, if he's not a God, then perhaps he's a devil. In
Mm-hmm.
which case, the Nokkers could be servants of God, while Fushi might be the creation of a devil, which I thought was just really interesting food for thought. Like, I have no
Yeah.
idea how much water it actually holds, but just really interesting to think about.
Yeah. That would be an interesting twist.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's hard to believe that the guy who says my garden would be
Mm.
a devil of sorts. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it could be just that one side is more benevolent than the other, um,
Yeah.
than we realize. But who knows? And I going along with that, there was a moment where Fushi brings that up, and the face that the beholder makes. What you could also say is just he's just kind of not indifferent, but just kind of blank. But I also took, you know, him thinking, "How dare you bring that devil crap up with me? Like, who do you think I am?" Or
Yeah, that was a really interesting conversation they had because because as you said, like Fushi asks him like whether or not he's a devil, and his response was interesting. I thought because he tells Fushi that um, that talk is far removed from us. He says us.
yeah,
Does he mean him and Fushi? I'm not sure. The way it seemed to me was more like us. They refer to potentially others like him, another group of beings
right.
on his level or whatever you want to say. It seemed that way.
Do you remember when is it volume 2 where when he first appeared,
Mm.
and it's when Fushi and Pioran are on an adventure, and he asks, or I think the beholder brings up what their grand purpose is,
Yeah.
and he says we have a grand purpose, or
Yes.
a greater purpose,
Uh huh.
and I remember we were speculating what that could be, and I actually re-listened to this on one of my runs this past week,
Oh yeah.
and I said that we could mean not Fushi and him, but maybe other people like him or some
Right.
sort of group.
Yeah, I remember that.
This kind of gives potentially some credence to that. However, it
Yeah.
could still be read as him and Fushi. So I'm not going
Mm.
to go 100% and say there's a club of hooded figures he's part of. Uh, but I don't know. It's odd that she still is bringing that kind of stuff up.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. Very interesting. I love to have him as this kind of constant mystery so far. It's very fun to talk about.
yeah.
But yeah, there's so much we don't know, I feel. And the last thing I have on the Beholder is when he was talking to Pioran at the end, he said that he would intercept her soul before she would reach paradise.
Hmm.
I think that's potentially what we saw that we talked about earlier when he took this orb in his hand and he kind of absorbed her or whatever he did.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could view that as while she was in her dream state, while experiencing her youth, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
she may have been on her way to paradise in some sense, but he arrived and kind of took her away from there to, as I speculated earlier, possibly bring her back into the real world and kind of place her soul somewhere where she would be eventually useful to Fushi. Um, but the but I don't know. It was just interesting how he worded that. He would intercept her soul so that she
Mm-hmm.
like before she would reach paradise, which also feels like, as we were talking about earlier regarding how Tonari was speculating, where at in that scene it felt like he was somewhat of the on like the opposite of God or the opposite of paradise things. But and this kind of makes me, or it gives me the same vibe too, the way he worded that. Like, I'm gonna bring you off the path to paradise, kind of. I don't know. It's just really like who on earth is this guy?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, the way I took it is they're currently in the mortal plane of existence,
Mm.
and when souls pass away, they go up into higher plane of existence, the paradise, or however this world works.
Mm.
And I think that because the man in black, the beholder, is there right now, he's able to intercept the souls before they go into paradise. And I don't think it necessarily means that, he's originally from the earth, or he himself can't get to paradise. But maybe when he says way back when he first came in that someone's in my garden or something like that,
Mm.
um, maybe that implies that the earth is his realm. Um, that he's not able to go, or this mortal plane is his realm, and he's not able to go into other places. But I don't know.
Mm.
I don't, for some reason, him being anything but benevolent, and not necessarily a god, but somewhat benevolent, kind of feels like contradicts the tone of the first chapter, where it felt very much like an immortal being was beginning a story that was meant for us mortals or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he. I also feel mostly like I'm leaning mostly to thinking that he is more good than evil,
Mm-hmm.
based on the fact that he has been there for Fushi to help him and to teach him things, and he's actively doing, I guess, what he can to give Fushi warnings about the Nokkers, which aren't just a threat to Fushi, but to humanity as a whole, supposedly.
Hmm.
So I think mostly he does seem to be a good character.
Yeah, that could be a fake out, I guess.
Could be, could be. Man, yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see more of him. Should be very interesting.
He can force Fushi to create objects. Like he kind of just, I don't know if we've seen that before. Maybe we have, but
Hmm?
he just, you know, pointed his finger or moved his finger, and a sword came out of Fushi. So I was like, wow, that's
Oh
he
wait,
has.
was that his power, or was that Fushi just doing that because he said you'll need a sword, and Fushi just created a sword? Because that's how I read it.
To me, it looked like he kind of summoned it out of Fushi,
Uh,
but I could be wrong.
yeah, I never read it that way, but I mean, maybe you might be right.
The reason why I say is because there's a whip sound that he does with his finger, like he motions with his finger,
Mm.
and then it just seems to like coming out of his hand unnaturally, like out of his wrist, not from his hand where he probably would usually produce a weapon, if he was gonna hold it, and the way he's looking at it coming out, he's kind of there's like a ellipses, a dot dot dot,
Ooh.
like he's kind of
Ah.
like, wait,
Oh
what
yeah.
is going on, or like why is this happening, kind of a thing.
Right.
But obviously he's like, okay, I need this, so all right,
True. Actually, yeah. Looking at it again now, I can see that more. I think I'm a bit torn on it right now. Uh,
that's fair,
yeah.
that's fair. And it's
That's
so minor though, like what does it matter to even bring this up? But that's just what I was thinking.
yeah. It would make sense for him to be able to do that. Uh, First of all, I'll say this sword that does emerge from Fushi's wrist is surely a sword that he would have been able to create himself. I don't think I don't think the beholder gave him a new item.
No,
However,
no.
it's still very possible that he did it, and I think it would make sense given that we've seen him turn Fushi from between like transform Fushi from one form to another. Like we've seen him do that before, like from a fruit to a human or from a rock to a wolf. So given the fact that we know for a fact that he can do that, then this doesn't seem like too much of a stretch. So yeah, that's a really nice observation actually. I think that's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, cool, cool. So moving on, you've already talked about the knocker a bit. I don't know if you have anything more. I have a little bit, however.
How about you give your part, because I basically been a chatterbox this whole time.
So. I see. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to give a brief little shout out to the zombie Nokkers. I thought that was a really cool little, like, new disturbing take on the Nokkers.
Very disturbing.
But yeah, I just thought they were really cool, but kind of the other more prominent thing I had noted down for the Nokkers is how back in Volume 4. When the Nokkers had just attacked and Gugu was hanging off the cliffside holding onto a Nokker vine,
Mm-hmm.
He was just hanging on the edge. The Nokker tentacle vine thing, it's like briefly pierced Gugu's skin, like in his armpit area as he was holding on to the vine. But it like retracted itself and went back out pretty much immediately. So it just like very, very briefly went in and then just went out pretty much right away. It was just a few very kind of small panels, and it was kind of strange, I thought, like at first, like with that. But having read this book, I feel like maybe that instance when that happened to Gugu might have been when the Nokkers kind of got the idea of possessing human bodies the way they did here, perhaps, because we do know that they evolve and they learn. So maybe that's something they kind of got the inspiration from through that brief little experience.
Yeah, maybe. And I think that seeing how much people have helped Fushi, I think the Nokkers realize that, okay, people right now are Fushi's greatest strength. So we need to use that somehow against him.
Yeah. True.
So I think that's the reasoning behind at least possessing the live bodies. The zombies was probably just a smart idea because you have an army of dead. I mean, bury your dead people. Like look, just if it has to be all in a pit, so be it. But you don't want zombies coming up, man.
No.
You know the movies where the zombies they pop out of the ground. I mean, look, a dead body is not gonna be able to pop out of the ground very easily.
No.
Okay.
No, that'll take a while.
Yeah. Bury your dead or burn them, whatever you want. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, but true. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting little thing that sort of makes sense now because it didn't really make much sense in Volume 4, like that little detail just by itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have anything more on the Nokkers?
Did Nokker Hayase kill the dude? I mean, I'm assuming it's Nokker Hayase, combined in some way, whether the Nokker is controlling it or they're together. Did she kill the dude that was supposedly helping her recover?
On the beach.
Right.
On the beach? Yeah.
Or did they get frisky? No,
she's in love with Fushi. She wouldn't cheat on Fushi.
Well, I mean, maybe she got rejected there. I mean, or the Nokker is completely in control somehow.
True.
Yeah, I don't know why the Nokker would all of a sudden be like, I want to knock someone up. Just take that out. Take that out.
Gives a whole nother meaning to Nokker. Oh my god.
Oh god.
That's great. No,
I don't know if that's appropriate.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Interesting thoughts. I guess maybe we'll find out potentially in the next one.
All right.
Although, as we also have talked about, a lot of time has passed potentially since then. So
that's true. True.
Guess we'll see. Maybe we'll get some flashbacks to things. I don't know.
I'd rather not have a flashback to any sort of friskiness.
Fair.
That's all I have on Nokkers.
All right. Is there any other character or other thing you'd like to bring up before we close off this episode?
Yeah. Briefly, Nand.
Yeah.
I wonder if Nand's character will come up again at all. He seems to be. I mean, I guess he wrote Tonari, so that's nice.
Yeah.
And he was taking care of the kids. I'm not sure exactly where they went. But maybe they'll come back in the story somehow. But he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
So yeah, we are, as I said at the start of this episode, we are now halfway caught up to as many books as I've read, which means, by Volume 12, I will be just as unspoiled as James. And brief little thing about the anime.
Sure.
As of us recording right now, it is 12 episodes in. I think actually the next episode is going to be a recap episode,
Ah,
but it's not part of like the 20 episodes that it was going to be, so it doesn't actually consume one of those slots as far as I've understood it.
oh, it's just 20 episodes, not 24.
Yeah, the whole thing is going to be 20
Gotcha.
episodes. Yes. But this
Okay.
is an added one that they're, I guess, putting in between episodes 12 and 13. That will be a recap episode for the next one. However, yes, as I said, 12 episodes in so far. Gugu died in the most recent episode. Fantastic anime so far. I absolutely love
Hmm.
the everything they've done with it. It's a perfect adaptation. Like the pacing is so good, and they don't do like unnecessary filler stuff. At the same time,
Beautiful.
they also don't skip things. Like it's just I legitimately couldn't be happier with it. But that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is related to the fact that we have now read up to volume 6 in the manga. Ever since I learned that there would be an anime adaptation of this, of course I was very excited for it from the beginning because I've been a very big fan of this manga since the very earliest volumes. But
Hmm.
I also became pretty confident that they would cover the anime up to the end of volume 6 was pretty much my speculation from the beginning, and so far that still seems to hold up. I think that seems pretty, it's still pretty safe to assume that's what they're planning with the anime, or with this first season at least of the anime.
Okay.
So I'm very happy with that, and as I said also at the beginning of this discussion, I do think I do kind of view these first 6 books as, well, as a bigger thing, as one thing in a sense. So I think it's perfect to end the anime first season the way this book ends. I think
Yeah.
it just does that really well. Like it, yeah. These first 6 books are just such a good opener to Fushi's story, and it. I think it also really tied it all up together really nicely with Hayase coming back, and as I said, also like the death of Pioran, because
Hmm.
it was really much like it was really a an era kind of like the Pioran era, I guess you could say, because she was in it from the very first volume.
True.
Um,
True.
and so it does that really well, kind of ties things up that have been kind of standing from the first volume with Hayase and Pioran, but at the same time it does leave some cliffhangers, like Hayase and the Nokker, as we've been talking about, like what's up with that.
Hmm.
And of course the Beholder is a constant mystery. So of course the story continues, but at the same time I do feel like it is a somewhat of a self-contained little story told in these first 6 books.
Agreed. I actually, when I was rereading this, I wondered where exactly they would end off in the anime, because for a second I thought that maybe the chapter where Fushi gets back to the main island after leaving Hayase, and then the whole knocker thing happens. I thought maybe that could be where they end off the anime
Hmm.
potentially, and then you start up if they have another season, which I hope they do.
Yes. Oh
Then
yes.
you would start off the next season with Pure and her death. That could be a good starting point, but
Hmm.
I I do think, as we were talking, I think you bring up a good point that having Pioran's death end it would be a strong note to end this story off, and kind
Hmm.
of be a satisfying satisfying
Yeah.
it maybe I use that term loosely,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
way to end this beginning story.
Yeah.
I just wonder if they're going to tease that time jump thing. Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe that's a good tease to get people to either read the manga or potentially get excited for another season.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
I really hope they do. Like make it a post-credit scene, just like a
Mm-hmm.
like just a couple seconds, really. Like it doesn't need to be long. Like it's just one page in the anime here, or sorry, in the manga here. Um, I yeah. So like exactly what this volume is, I hope they cover
Gotcha.
throughout the end of this anime season, personally, and also based on what we see in the opening sequence for the anime. We see Tonari, we see her friends, so we know that they're going to be there, and we do actually also see young Pioran on the beach.
Oh.
in the opening sequence.
Okay then. Well then,
So
I think that settles it.
so yes.
So that's funny because I've seen a few of the episodes all the way up to like two episodes into Gugu's arc, but I watched the opening when the first time it shows up, and I saw things I didn't know about, so I immediately covered my eyes and haven't like seen it since.
Smart.
So I was like, oh crap, it's gonna spoil stuff. So okay, well there you go. I think that without a doubt the Pioran part's gonna be in there then.
Yes,
Pioran's
for sure.
death.
And also I'm hoping for like a little post credit teaser for that little final page of this volume as well.
You know, kind of a tangent, but you know how some anime or shows will, well, mostly anime, the credits will show characters if it has like a big cast. They'll show characters and what they're doing when the story ends. You know, that would be great for this one. We'd see Tonari and her helping the village. That'd be nice.
Oh yeah.
We'd see Reen and oh yeah, she's crying over Gugu's grave. That's awesome. And then we would see Perona and her oh wait, Perona's dead. Well, we'd see no, we wouldn't see that either.
Or maybe they're dead too. Marsh's parents might have also.
They're probably dead. That whole village. Oh, we see the village burnt down.
Yes, exactly.
That would be great.
Yeah.
See. Oh man. Yeah. It's great credits. That'd be awesome. Like way to end the story.
Oh my goodness. But hey, at least Tonari is alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Oh my god. Okay. Yes. I guess that's it. I think this is our longest To Your Eternity discussion so far, but I think Volume 6 is worthy of that.
My bad. It's a great volume, but I did think I rambled and went on certain incoherent rants.
It's all good.
So sorry about that.
No worries. I think it was a good discussion. I had a lot of fun talking about this one. So, I guess that's all for this week?
I guess so.
Cool. Then, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga. And if you like this episode, please share it around with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time where we'll talk about Volume 7. Bye-bye.
See you later.
And I think,
I hope what I said made sense.
It did.
I feel like I'm kind of off my game today.
No. I don't know
why. I love this volume.
No, I thought it made sense. I'm a little bit off my game.